Often when you meet somebody for the very first time, eventually the question always comes up around, what do you do for a living? When I'm posed with a question, my response is always the same. I own my own business that specializes in trading and speculating in the financial markets. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I love doing. And that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell. And the answer and the feedback is always the same. The response tends to be this pause of silence, kind of trying to figure out and understand exactly what does that kind of mean. And if the person's got an understanding around what it actually is, and they've got a background or some sort of encounter that they've had with it before, they tend to always answer saying, isn't that like gambling? And don't most of the people that attempt that lose money where the odds are stacked against them? And I would say all of those assumptions are correct. Most people do lose, the odds are stacked against them. The statistics are 9 out of 10 people fail at trading within their first year, and only 10% go on to be successful over the long term. And coupled with that, yes, a lot of people do lose money. And the reason is that they approach it in the wrong way. And trading can be gambling. If you approach trading with an unstructured, unplanned, looking at it as a hobby or a side hustle that you're trying to make some quick cash, yes, the odds will be stacked against you and you will lose money. But generally, my answer is trading is not gambling. And I'm going to explain to you why trading is not gambling and how trading is actually like owning your own personal casino. Because when you understand the odds, the statistics, and the correct approach to trading, you can literally almost guarantee your success in the markets. But you need to know how to do it and how to approach it correctly. So before we can get into the details of why trading is not gambling and how trading is owning your own casino, we first need to understand how a casino operates and how does a casino make money. First things first, all casinos, and I'm not just talking a handful of them, all of them operate in this way. There is no way that casinos can guarantee and open up their floors to millions and millions of people knowing that they're going to run at a loss. The reason why they make the availability of the casino floor and the games available to people is they know that they have the odds stacked in their favor. And they do that by rigging the games that they play to put the odds in their favor, giving them a statistical edge over the players that come into the casino. We can look at a couple of different games. I mean, there are various different games that one can play with a casino, from blackjack to roulette to poker to slot machines to craps. There's a whole bunch of different games that you can play within the casino. All those games are rigged. They've all got different statistical edges over the player. Most seem to say that blackjack is probably the most fair game where the odds are even, but even there you need to know exactly what you're doing in order to beat the house. But let's just take a very simple example. Let's look at the game of roulette. Often when you are playing this game of roulette, if you're familiar with it, it's pretty simple and straightforward. There's various different strategies and rules that one needs to stick to when they play the game. But we're going to look at a very simple example of how roulette works. Generally, you've got this big wheel with a whole bunch of different numbers on it. Those numbers are color-coded in black or red, and the numbers go from as little as 1 all the way up to 36 being the highest number. Thereafter, you can place different bets on which color the ball will land. So when you spin the wheel, they take a little ball, they throw it into the wheel, and as the wheel slows down, eventually the little ball is going to land on one of these colors and numbers, which will determine whether you win or lose on the bet you placed. You can place several different bets. You can bet on a number, you can bet on a color, you can bet on whether it's going to land on an odd or an even number, and you can also place multiple bets across different various things. So you can bet on a number, a color, odd or even, and have your go and see which way it lands. Looking at the simple example, let's just focus on one area. Let's say we were going to just bet on black or red. Looking at the wheel to the left, you would see that there are 18 red numbers and there are also 18 black numbers. But the other thing that most people overlook and don't think about is that there are also 2 green numbers on the wheel. Let's work out the statistics of this and how that all works. So if I take my money and I bet on red and we spin the wheel and we throw the ball on and we land on red, I win. So if I bet $500 on red and we land on a red color or a red number, I would get my $500 back, plus I would get another $500, so I double my money. If it lands on any other color that is not what I've bet on, I lose my money and the house wins it. The critical thing to remember here when it comes to the green numbers is that no matter what you've bet on, if it lands on green, the house always wins. So if you place the bet on red and black and it lands on green, you lose both those bets. Now understanding and knowing the basics of that, let's unpack the statistical edge here that the casino has over the player, so you can see how they've rigged the game of roulette to put their odds in their favor. Let's look at the statistics from a player's side of things. As a player, you've got 18 red or 18 black that you can bet from. But if you add up the 18 red and the 18 black plus the 2 green numbers, that's 38 numbers or 38 different outcomes that the ball can land on the roulette wheel. If we do some simple mathematics and let's say we bet on red, you've got an 18 out of 38 different variables to land on red. That gives you a 47.3% chance of being right. And the odds of the casino then is that they've got the other 18, the opposite side of your bet. So if you bet on red, they've got all the 18 black numbers plus the 2 green numbers. So if we look at their statistical edge, that is 20 divided by 38, gives them a 52.7% edge over the player. If we minus these two from each other, that gives the casino a 5.4% edge over the player. Now you might look at 5.4% and say, well, that's not really big, is it? I mean, 5.4%, it would seem far more attractive if it was like an 80% edge over the player and that, a player would only win 20% of the time and the casino would win 80% of the time. That would seem far more attractive. Well, in a scenario like that, the odds would be so stacked against the player that nobody would be willing to play that game. But because the edge is so small and that you've got still a fair amount of opportunity for the player to win, so you give them some sort of hope that they could win, over a period of time, the casino always comes out the greater winner.